to the fourth day of Heal Yourself with the Power of Consciousness. So let's have a moment's silence before we start the proceedings. So welcome, friends, and this evening's facilitator is Dr. Monica Gilatti. Now, I've known Monica a few years now, and she's become an increasingly important figure in NAMAH. She's contributed quite a few beautiful articles for us, and recently she became editor of our journal, She works closely also with Sakar and is very active on other online workshops and events. Now, her background
Yeah, I think James got disconnected.
I'm very sorry about that. Our internet failed. So I'll start again. Basically, about Monica. Her background is in immunology, and she studied at Zurich University for her PhD. Now, it would be fair to say that her biggest challenge that came to her was when cancer. Please mute yourself, sir. Please mute yourself, sir. When cancer visited her body about 7 years ago. And she overcame it by embracing it, turning her life and consciousness around, and by offering it all at the Mother's feet. So I'm sure she'll have a few words to say about this in the next hour. The subject of her session is Give Yourself and Reclaim Your Life. Monica is a very dynamic speaker, and her sessions are very engaging and profound. So I'm greatly looking forward to this session. Let's hope the internet connection stays solid. Over to you, Monica.
Yeah, thank you so much, James. And hello to everyone. Namaste to everyone. So let us start with the topic today. And the topic today is giving ourselves back to the divine and reclaiming our power back, reclaiming our life back. Now, there are many questions that may arise on the topic. First of all, whom to give myself to? What is myself? And how to give myself back? And why do I need the field to give myself back? And I'm sure all of us here are very familiar with the name surrender, the term called surrender. Surrendering your life to the divine, to the higher intelligence. So I have a question here for all of us. Let's start with the question first, share our reflection. What is the need for me to surrender? Why must I surrender? And if in your life you see this happening, and if you have ever reflected upon it, that why must I surrender? Why is surrender so important? Yeah, so can we share our reflections? It would be nice if we can share our reflections shortly by unmuting or on the chat window, whatever feels good to you. Why must we surrender? What is the need to surrender?
I can share my bit. Like, it has been very difficult for me to surrender. However, anytime I have attempted to offer myself to the divine, I have become more aware of my own limitations. And it has been a very big opening, a very gentle opening for me to come closer to the divine. So, yeah, it's about how I have seen it in my experience.
So, Pooja, one more question on the reflection that you shared. Yeah. Would you still want to surrender if someone tells you, whom you admire and respect and get inspiration from, if someone tells you that, Pooja, if you surrender, you would be really miserable after surrendering or on this path, would you still want to surrender, or would you have a second thought about it?
I have never felt miserable whenever I have attempted to surrender.
Forget
so
about
I will not believe. No, I will not believe. I will not believe anything unless and until I experience.
Yes, yes. But imagine, I'm just imagining, we are just imagining here. Imagine that today somebody tells you that on the path of surrender, your suffering, in fact, becomes more of a misery. Like, you don't get relaxation at all. You become more miserable. And forget about your experiences for a moment. Would you still want to surrender for the sake of it, or would you give it a second thought? Just reflecting upon it.
I will doubt it for the first time, yes. Yeah. But I guess if right now somebody would say it would become more miserable, I would try. I would at least try.
Yeah, yeah. Beautiful. Thank you so much. Yeah, anyone else who wants to? Yeah. Yes. Yeah, so there are many responses in the chat window. Please feel free to read them if people are interested. Yeah, beautiful. So can we, and please correct me if I'm understanding wrong, and feel free to unmute and share in between. Can we make it can we see this, that why we want to surrender is that we suffer in life, and through surrender we actually get a relief from that suffering. Is that not our experience? Even if for a moment or two I have been able to surrender myself to the higher intelligence, has it not been my experience that I have momentarily, at least, I have relieved myself of the suffering? So what I wanted to point out by this question is that the need for surrender is because we suffer in life. We become very tense in life, like a constricted ball. Imagine that there is a sponge ball that you have. And the more I live as an ego, I'm like this, I'm like constricted. intention all the time, unease all the time. And nobody wants to be here. And all that the sponge ball is wanting to have is this relaxation of the being. And that's why we love these little tools that we get through workshops, through meditations or all these experiences, because they help us relieve the unease and tension and constriction that we experience when we live identified with the ego consciousness. Imagine that you are, the clothes that you wear is size medium, and somebody gives you double XS size. Now, the moment you fit yourself into those clothes, you would feel miserable in those clothes. You would feel anxious. You will suffocate yourself. Why? Because it's not the proper size. And when we live as the ego consciousness, and we will talk what do we mean by ego consciousness. When we live as the ego consciousness, we are like this. We are like this. Because we are identifying ourselves with something which we are not. And it feels wrong. It does not feel nice. We suffer here. And all that the ego wants is this liberation from that constriction. And that's why then we can talk about the path of surrender, because all that I am seeking is relaxation from this constant presence of unease, from a presence of a sense of lack within the being. And that's why all I want is fulfillment, contentment. And when I walk on this path, I touch these spaces in between. So we also have to see that we walk on the spiritual path for a reason. It's not for without a reason that we just out of, initially why we start is not because of the love for the divine, mostly. Initially, most of us start because we suffer so much in our lives. Many may start for the love of the divine also. But mostly our journeys start because we suffer. We begin to suffer through our thoughts and emotions and life situations or relationships. And we don't like that suffering. We want to have an end to that suffering. And we must yearn to end that suffering, because that is not our true nature. Suffering is not my true nature. This constriction or being suffocated in the double XS size, it's not my true nature. That's not who I truly am. Something in me already has the knowing that that's not my true nature, and that is why I suffer. So suffering can be a beautiful signal. Just like, James was pointing, the cancer came into my life. Today we may not be able to talk about it that much, but the cancer that came to my life, it was a beautiful reminder for me that I had lost touch with who I truly am, because I had identified too much with my ego consciousness. Yeah. So can we take all the challenge, all the suffering, mental, emotional, physical suffering, just as a pointer, just as a signal that, hey, hey dude, you are identifying at a wrong place. You are not that. You are not that. You are not the body. You are not the mind. You are not the emotions. You are all of that, and yet something more. So we forget about that something more. You must have heard of that story of 5 blind people. Many of you have heard maybe that story, where they are trying to, for the first time, they are trying to estimate how an elephant looks. Now, they have not seen the elephant. Earlier, they had eyes. They had seen many other things, but this is the first time in their blindness that they want to see or touch and feel an elephant. Now, they are blinded. They cannot really see the elephant. So, there is this Mahavat sitting on the elephant, and they are touching from all the sides. One person touches the stomach, and he says that the elephant is like a soft wall. The other person touches the tail, and he describes it as a broom. Elephant is like a broom. The one other blind person touches the pillar-like legs of the elephant, and he says, no, elephant is like a pillar. So all of them later, after touching and experiencing, they are fighting with each other. That no, the elephant is not like a broom; it's like a pillar. The other one is saying, no, it's not like a pillar; it's like a soft wall. And the Mahavat comes and he says, why are you arguing? Why are you fighting? And he says, then they describe why we are fighting, and the Mahavat says, yes, my elephant is all of this and more. So we forget, throughout this journey, we forget that yes, mind, body, emotions are there. But am I just that? Is that my truth? And that's why suffering comes as a blessing, because it makes us wake up from our stories, that we are not our stories. Yeah. So I feel that true healing, since the workshop is about true healing, I feel personally the experience that has been for me through my disease and other things also, I feel that the true healing requires liberation from the knot of ego consciousness. And I think that is what we have been touching also in different ways through different speakers in this workshop. And furthermore, we'll be continuing the journey. Without disengaging from the ego consciousness, there can be no true healing. And people many a times ask me that, are you in remission? Are you sure that, cancer will come back or not? And I say, I'm not sure. Who is ever sure about things happening in life? But who wants to know? Why would I want to know? Because once you more and more give yourself to the higher, I think the need to know that the disease will happen again or not would vanish. Because now you are a slave of the divine. Now it does not matter whether the remission happens or whether some other disease comes. If it comes, again a signal to wake up from my own sleep, my own slumber. Yeah? And Mother has said that find something in you which is constantly present like a thread through all your experiences since childhood and even before. And today, I think it would be very nice if later on I'll invoke you all into a meditation if people are ready, where we can touch into that aspect, that element of our being which never changes. And Mother says that know yourself as that element which has never changed and will never change. Thoughts come and go. My stories in the head come and go. Feelings come and go. Emotions come and go. Physical sense perceptions, headache, migraines, stomachache, everything comes and goes. Physical cells change all the time. There is one thing, one element, which is a very subtle element in us, which never comes and goes. And Mother talks about finding it out for ourselves, which may require a tedious perseverance, because it's subtle, it's not gross. This telephone is gross. I can touch it, I can feel it, and I can say that it's there. Yes, I know it's there. But what we are talking of here is a very subtle element in our consciousness. And that's why many masters have pointed out at it, that it's so subtle that it's so close to you that you can't find it. Imagine that you are finding something in a room. Now, can you ever find your eyes in a room? I can find a cup in the room, I can find a chair in the room, but will I ever be able to find my own eyes? Not because they are too far away from me, just because they are so close that I can't touch it objectively. I can't find it. I can just know that they are there. Yeah. So this element in us, which is forever here, forever, 24/7, essential element of our being, is nothing that I'm going to tell you for the first time. People have talked in several ways. It's the awareness that knows everything in us. For example, if I'm thinking, I'm aware of the thinking. Through awareness, I know a thought. Through awareness, I know a feeling. Now, how you are listening to my voice, now ears can't do anything if there is no awareness beneath the ears. So what is making ears function, truly function, is the presence of this self-aware awareness, self-luminous light within us. So the nature of this awareness is self-luminous. It knows itself. It lights up everything that it comes in touch with. So the moment I have a migraine, how do I know that I have a migraine? I am aware of the migraine. How do I know that I am suffering? I am aware of the suffering. How do I know I have a thought? I am aware of the thought. So everything may have changed since childhood to until now. One thing which has never changed, which will never change, is the self-aware awareness, or one can say the self-aware presence in us, through which I see everything, through which I know everything. If not for this presence of awareness, I cannot know really what is happening in my head. If not for the presence of awareness, I cannot know what is happening in my emotions. And Mother says, know yourself as this element. Yeah, would that make sense for us? And this is the way we disengage from our thoughts, emotions, and sense perceptions. Because when I'm suffering, when I'm in a truly difficult confusion and chaos, I am for sure identified with either a story in my head, knowing myself as the story, the character in the story. I am for sure identified truly with my emotions. I am for sure identified with my sense perceptions, what I see, what I conceive and interpret. The moment I step back, in that very moment, I know myself as the awareness which sees it all. Awareness never suffers. But most often than not, I am not knowing myself as awareness. And this is where divine collaboration, Mother talks about, collaborate with the divine. Give yourself to the divine. How can I give myself to the divine? When I begin to know that what makes me miserable is constant identification with mind, emotions, and the sense perception. My desire, my ambition, my greed. The moment I want to, there is a free will associated here. The moment I want to, okay, enough of this suffering, now I really want to know who I truly am. I really want to end this suffering and torture for myself. When we are ready. And why I say when we are ready, because many a times identifying with the ego consciousness gives us rasa. It gives us a juice. Most of the times I am not ready to give up that juice. And that's why free will is there. Mother says, I don't go anywhere, you go out and lose yourself in the attractions of the world. Just paraphrasing the Mother. So the awareness never goes anywhere. What I do is I become the thought, I become the feeling, I become the story in my head, and I become a slave to those stories. And I suffer. Now when a child suffers, all that he looks for is the mother. Mother, give me some relief. I'm lost. And that's why again and again, suffering or any kind of emotional, mental pain and torture comes as a blessing in disguise, because it tells us to go back to the mother, to know who I truly am, to know myself as the presence of awareness, which never goes away from me. Now, even when we talk about finding the soul, those of us who are connected with the mother would have heard, Mother talks about go find your soul, go depths of your being and find your psychic being. And Mother says that the only tragedy that is there for a human being, the true tragedy is being unaware of your soul. There is no other tragedy that we go through. This is the biggest tragedy. Yeah, and that is why again masters, mystics like Kabir would say, wake up to your truth. Wake up to you who you truly are. So what are they wanting to say? I'm already awake, I'm awake, that I can see things are moving, I'm speaking. Why is Kabir saying, wake up, wake up? Waking up to my own truth, waking up to knowing who I truly am. Because as long as I live as the slave of emotions, thoughts, sense perceptions, I am as good as dead. I don't know who I truly am. And I feel that it's a very essential step in this journey. It has been for me, still going on, to concretize ourselves knowingly as the presence of awareness. Who am I? Not in theory, not intellectually. Knowing that all there is to my experience is awareness of experience. All there is to the dark cloud is the blue sky. The moment you go close to the dark cloud, if you look, dig deeper, all that you find is the blue sky. If you are watching a movie on the screen, and there is a beautiful mountain range and everything coming up on the screen. Now you go close to the screen and try to find out that mountain. All that you find is the screen. So that's why self-inquiry and investigation into our own thoughts, emotions has been a very important part of spiritual path, because without that I will be forever a case of mistaken identity. Who I am my thoughts, and now what do I want to do? I want to fulfill this feeling of sense of lack. So first I buy myself into the sense of lack without investigating it, and then all my life I'm trying to fulfill that sense of lack. I never question that thought of sense of lack is not who I truly am. I am the awareness which becomes aware of the thought of sense of lack. So I can disengage myself from that thought. Yeah. And our sadhana is more so in happy moments. We cannot do this practice or non-practice in struggle, periods full of struggle, because if I have not been knowing myself as awareness in my happy times, it is impossible that I get to know myself as awareness in my times full of struggle. That's why Kabir would say, Dukh mein sumiran sab kare, sukh mein kare na koi, jo sukh mein sumiran kare, so dukh kahe ko hoye. So in English it would mean, everybody remembers the divine in periods of pain. But if you remember the divine, and what they mean by remembering the divine is remember who you truly are. If I remember who I truly am, in the period where story is happy, I am okay. Not much mentorship and guruship is required. There, if I remember my true nature, then it will be slowly, gradually become impossible for me to fall a trap to the ego consciousness. Fall into the trap of ego consciousness. Yeah. And when we talk about the trap of ego consciousness, that just means when I identify myself completely with my story, my emotions, my sense perceptions. That is who I am. This body, this mind, this emotion. And when I step back and I take a stand as awareness, who am I? I am aware of the thoughts. I am aware of my feelings. I am aware of sense perceptions. And I am more than all of them. Just like that elephant is more than all that we can perceive about the elephant. There I become liberated from the sense of ego. And ego has its function. In evolution it has its own purpose. But where we are right now, all of us who are attending the workshop, I'm sure that the ego has done its job. That's why we are here. Yeah? And then now the next step for me is, and it's not a one-time happening. I cannot say that, okay, now I have become egoless. It can never happen. Kabir says, मन को मृतक जान के मत कीजिए विश्वास, साधु तब तक भय करे जब तक पिंजर में सांस. So he says that do not fool yourself seeing that the mind is dead, their ego is dead. A true sadhak on the path will as long vigilant as he has the breath in the body. Because ego is like a mirage. It can appear and disappear anytime. So never to fool ourselves that now I am egoless. Because anytime a new challenge comes, here you go back again in the misery. And all misery is coming from the ego. All suffering is coming from the ego. So suffering and misery and our, this constriction of the being, unease of the being is a beautiful signal, because it tells me again and again that I have again become identified as the ego consciousness. So what is the next step for me to do? To dissociate, to know myself as awareness. There are no external dots that need to be fixed, no external people that need to be fixed. And that gives me my power back. So we come to the second line of our topic today. We claim our life back. The moment I know myself as this awareness, all the power is back to me. There is no person who needs to fix himself. There is no life situation which needs to fix itself. Now I know who I truly am. And it has to be done, as I was saying, every moment of our living life. Because forgetfulness is so huge. We are born in amnesia. We are born in forgetfulness and ignorance. It's so huge that remembrance of our true nature becomes a necessity here. The way we live, the way we are born in forgetfulness of our true nature. So that's why surrender is a lifelong journey. Remembrance of our true nature is a lifelong journey until it becomes effortless. And now falling in the grip of ego becomes more like unease. Earlier I feel that knowing myself as awareness is uneasy for me. It's like I have to do some practice. Yeah, because I'm so used to live as ego. But slowly, gradually, as we travel on this path, the effortlessness of being awareness, knowing consciously myself as awareness, becomes effortless. And now falling in the grip of ego would become an unease. And Mother says that once you live in the psychic, the moment an unease is there, you know that again, something needs to be checked. You're again maybe falling into the grip of ego consciousness. So be aware of that unease. Yeah. So I think I've talked enough, although I talk a lot, and I would not like to just keep it a monologue. If possible, if there are doubts and questions, I would be very, very glad if we can unmute and share our questions and notes.
Monica, can you hear me?
Yeah.
This is Vignesh.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for taking me on a journey. Maybe feel that distance and a little because of the distance that I could recreate as you were explaining.
Can you be a little louder, Vigneshji? A little louder?
Yes. Yes, thank you. As you were explaining, I have three situations in which this practice is going to be really hard. Not that it's easy anyway, but in these three places it is really hard from the start. I would just like to ask for your opinion of these, how to do it in these three situations. One is that the physical pain, when we ourselves suffer a very hard and torturous physical pain. The other one is when someone near and dear to us, like our child, is undergoing some physical pain. At that moment, how to surrender and how to ensure that we are in peaceful and good faith that all things will be all right. That is the second situation. The third is that when something adharmic, that is something opposed to dharma, is happening in front of us, and we need to step in and take an action. We cannot remain without doing an action at that time. And there will be mixed feeling. There will be like feeling of anger to the party who is actually doing an adharmic act. So at that time when we are forced to enter into action. So in these three places, right, the surrender and action, all of this needs to come into place. So if you could explain how to fix our attitude in these three situations, it will be very helpful. Thank
Beautiful.
you.
Yeah, thank you so much for your question. So knowing myself as awareness does not make me a passive witness, not at all, far from it. Knowing myself as awareness make me do the right action at the right moment. So when you say that if there is something injustice that is happening, if you truly are concretized in knowing yourself as awareness, it is not possible that you do not step up and take a stand, because all your life force is now very concentrated. It's not dispersed and dissipated. So whenever a right challenge is there, whenever a right action is there, then you get up and take a stand selflessly. Now it's nothing for your ego there, but you know that this action needs to be taken, and all the life energy is there at the service of the right action. Yeah. And then the first thing that you were asking about the child being unwell and how to surrender, I think it's just through our experiences that we get to know that there is hardly anything in our hands. The only thing, if I can say, is in our hands is the attitude with which we take the life and its experiences. So if my child is unwell, and I had a child who had been unwell when I, just relating my own experience, because for 13 days after I gave birth to my child, he was not home. He was in the ICU. We did not know whether he was to come home or not. It was a tough period. And there I realized the value of higher intelligence or the divine, because I realized that I actually am helpless here. I have no control, no power over that kid's life who I may claim as my own, but still my hands are empty. I have not touched that fellow in 13 days. I have given birth, but I have not touched. So there the ego realizes the futility of its wanting to control. Yeah. So I would relate it in this manner, that the more we realize that it's futile to control the external events and happenings, the more with understanding we realize that the only thing I can be good at, because we all want this control, where we can actually exert this control is that the moment I become stabilized in my true being, the being of awareness, I can master my thoughts, I can master my emotions. There comes the self-mastery. I cannot do much at this moment in my consciousness. I cannot do much about what is happening to my kid's life or my loved one's life, because there some other forces are at play. I don't know what in this life they have to experience. So there I am absolutely helpless. But if I take that instance as a trigger to me, my attitude is in my hands. Yeah. So I think we need to get very grounded and settled in knowing who we truly are. It's not a 1-day job, 2-day job, 3-day job I think it's a lifetime of a process, concretizing and stabilizing ourselves, knowing ourselves as awareness. And then one can take the right action if necessary in the external moment or situation.
Thank you, Ji. Gratitude.
Thank you. Okay, so I'll just take up this question here. In the day-to-day situations, it's a question by Harsharanji. In the day-to-day situations, one tends to forget the purpose of true existence, which is very obvious because we are born in forgetfulness. So we don't have to be shameful about it. One has to live very shamelessly, that it's okay. Forgetfulness is here to stay. I cannot imagine that, okay, one day forgetfulness disappears. No, it is here to stay. Forget the purpose of true existence happens with all of us. And even the sense of awareness becomes dim. True. Which is the best way you personally feel is most effective? Okay. The most effective way is remembering who you truly are. Sumiran. Remembrance of our true nature, even in the happier times. What we do is that when times are good, when we are not in much need of the divine, there we become very relaxed and we forget who we truly are. So when the difficult situation strikes, we are just taken like, it's like a big shock that comes to us. So for me, it has been a constant satsangat, and the baddest sangat, the baddest company one can give is one's own thoughts and feelings and sensations. One's own stories in the head is the baddest company we can give ourselves. And that's why it's so important to immerse ourselves in words by masters and mystics, because the moment I read a few lines, I again remember who I truly am. So I would say that one of the beautiful ways to constantly keep this in our heart and knowing is remembrance of our true nature, even in the happier times, through satsangat, through contemplating on a few words, few lines, not much, and through also inwardly focusing on again and again who I truly am, who I truly am. Yes, in this moment, I am aware of everything around me. I am this awareness. I am this awareness. Yeah, so one has to stabilize and ground oneself there, because old habits die hard. We have been addicted to the ways of ego. We are addicts. We are all addicts. There is no one who is not an addict to the ego, to the stories in the head. And that's why when we de-addict ourselves, we need rehabilitation. And in rehabilitation, we may have to do these immersive practices which remind me of who I truly am. So this remembrance, I feel, is very important, since forgetfulness is where we are born. Ignorance is where we are born. Yeah. And one thing which I wanted to add, that also make it a practice. We can, one of the things that lightens us up is do something silly every day. We on the spiritual path, many a times we forget to be playful. Most of us may be there, but I feel that many a times we become so serious on the spiritual path that we forget to be playful. And look at the little children, they are very much one with their psychic, and they are very playful, very innocent. And the best way to walk this path, Mother has also said, is to have a childlike trust in the divine, in the higher intelligence, being very playful with a sense of humor, breaking your comfort zones, breaking your own rituals, and doing something harmlessly silly every day, because that keeps us very light and like a child, and not like a serious sadhak on the path, that can become another burden on us. Yeah. Yeah. Anything more? Anyone? Yeah.
Monica, hi, Saujanya here. Thanks for the wonderful talk so far. I also posted this on the group, but I thought, I'll just ask anyway because we have time. So I wanted to know, how do we actually surrender? What is the meaning of this in practical life? Like, I understand when one says a certain illness occurred, or there are some repeating patterns of troubles which we are facing, then we understand that our soul is trying to break free, right? So, but just understanding that rationally, that, hey, you know what, I'm not in the right direction. When you're pretty much deep in the situation, I don't know how much that helps. So my question is, what action needs to be taken to change the situation? And in the external world, practically speaking, other than the internal adjustment of understanding and acceptance, how do I solve the problem?
Beautiful. So, may I know your name?
My name is Saujanya.
Saujanya, okay. Thank you for the question. What is coming to me at the moment is two ways. One described by the mother, and the other also touched upon by the mother, which we've already touched. First of all, knowing myself as awareness. There is no escape. We cannot have the goodness in life too and know ourselves as the ego. That would never happen. There is no happy ego. There is no happy ego. Either ego is where unhappiness is, or the Lord is where love is. Both cannot coexist. Kabir on this says, जब मैं था तब हरि नाही, अब हरि है तो मैं नाही, प्रेम गली अति सांकरी, कामे दो समाये नाही. So he says that when the sense of I-ness, ego-ness was, then the Lord was not, or the Lord means peace, contentment, fulfillment, love. It cannot happen that the ego also stays in one moment. The ego is also there and a lot of love is also there. Not possible. Not possible. When love is, the ego is not in that moment. So when you talk about how to surrender, first of all, what do we mean by surrender? Imagine that I am a cop and I am, making a gun at you and say, surrender me your gun. And you are asking, where is my gun? I don't have any gun. So how can you surrender that which you don't even know that you have? And that's where comes the importance of becoming conscious of our movements, inner movements, thought movements, emotions, all that I keep on thinking in my head all the time. The moment my attention is turned inwards and I see, oh my God, there is so much rubbish here. Slowly, what we do is, on this path, since connected to Mother and Sri Aurobindo, is, the moment I see there is a lot of heaviness which I am carrying, there are a lot of thinking, emotional patterns which I am carrying, which are not useful to me. They are just adding on burden to me. Reactive patterns, emotive patterns. The moment I become conscious of them, what do? I say to the mother, Mother, I give it to you. You play dead to that pattern. You don't react with that pattern. That pattern may instigate you. Hey, do this, do this. You are playing dead. You have given it to the mother. So this is a very baby step in which surrender can happen every day. The moment, first of all, I have to turn within. I know that movement which I want to surrender. Yeah. And then what do? I become conscious of that movement, that I don't want to react through this pattern. Hey, Mother or the Divine, I give it to you. I offer it to the fire of life. And then you play dead to that pattern. If some of you have watched the movie A Beautiful Mind, yeah, so there is this, I'm sure some of us may have watched that movie. There is this fellow, who keeps on seeing these hallucinations, John Nash, the scientist. And what he does is that he keeps on seeing figures around him, and he's having a very, very difficult time to ignore those movements or the figures, because they appear so real, so real. How can I ignore? So that person who appears so real is talking to that John Nash, the fellow who is having the hallucination, and he's talking to the fellow as if he is real. And that's how we talk to our thoughts and emotions and stories in the head. They appear so real. How can I ignore them? Now slowly, as he's recovering through the schizophrenia or the disease that he has, when he's old enough, he's almost recovered. So somebody asks him that, have you stopped having those hallucinations? And he says, no, I still see them, but I choose to ignore them. Now we will continue to see our thoughts and stories in the head, reactive patterns, emotive patterns in the being. We will continue to see those ripples, but we will choose to ignore them because there is nothing there. I don't find fulfillment there. I don't find any contentment there. So I choose to ignore, and this is the importance of free will. Earlier, with the in oblivion use of free will, I was knowing them as real and hence spending a lot of energy there. Now, when I know myself as awareness, I see that yes, they are there. The thoughts are still there. The stories in the head about people and situations are still there, but I can choose to ignore them. Yeah, and this is how we surrender. Surrendering means you surrender who you not are. You stop to identify yourself as with all those movements which are totally unnecessary, which have troubled your life, and you come back home to yourself again and again again and again, again and again, as long as we are alive. So I would use this as a baby step to surrender. Yeah.
So Monica, that's very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. So let us take one. I think Harsharanji has put another question. Within the family, there are souls who have a varied sense of awareness. Some are more aware, others are less. How to harmonize with each of them? Could you give an essence this in general as situations keep on changing? Yes, Harsharanji, we all live in families, most of us. We face these troubles all the time. I have realized that the only way is to know yourself as awareness more and more, and remove your focus from wanting to fix anyone. I think that's where you do not drain your energy. Keep your focus on yourself, because I think we go too far. So one day I hear about, okay, who I truly am, and the other day I am talking to others that why don't you fix yourself, because I know who I truly am. It's not like that. It's not like that. So I would say that personally, if I would talk about myself personally, I have to take everything that comes from the external situation, whether it's my closed relationship, as just a trigger. What I need to be focused at is not identifying myself with all the ripples that trigger causes, but stabilizing and knowing myself as awareness again and again in the middle of that trigger. And then all the right actions that may need to be taken, they will come to you. Effortlessly, they will come to you. It's not that you have to become passive. Knowing your true being is not a passivity. It's a very active passivity. You know yourself as awareness, and since your energy is very preserved, whenever a right action needs to be taken, you take that action, you speak out, you stand for yourself. But most often than not, we are just unnecessarily poking into the affairs of others, and so-called others are mostly our loved ones. Yeah. So I think we have to disengage from that interference a lot and keep our absorption to ourselves mostly. There is a lot of work that needs to be done within, and then we can take external actions also. Yeah. And they will be coming from a right attitude. They will not be coming mostly, if you are there, then you will not be acting out of the ego consciousness. You will be able to act out of knowing yourself as awareness, and then the action will be full of love. The action will be full of understanding. Yeah, Vignesh ji is saying, hi, I do practice these teachings of remembering mother's constant presence. Many days it's joy, but some days the mind and emotions overpower, makes me drop back in world. Absolutely. With you, Vignesh ji. And these are the areas of our work, I believe. So I may be very easy when I relate with 10 people in my life. I'm very okay. I'm remembering the mother, I'm offering her my actions, and good. Yeah. But when it comes to that 100th fellow or the 10th fellow, I am very reactive. Now, I would say that these are our soft spots where inner work more is required, because they sway me away from mother's presence. Yeah. So take them, I think we need to take them as just a trigger for my inner work, to know myself as awareness, even in presence of that tsunami-like trigger, because that is where we gain strength. So just know and be grateful. I would say that these are the challenges which make us more strong in our own self, because they tell us that abhi bahut kaam bacha hai, there is a lot of work to be done. Otherwise, I can get too satisfied with myself and say, okay, I am all set, I am remembering every time. But the moment that trigger comes, I see that, oh my God, mother goes away and I am just trapped in the ego consciousness again. So I think these are very good triggers for us, which remind us that there is a lot of work to be done. Yeah. Practical exercise to be aware. So, Claudia, I would say that there is a teacher called Rupert Spira, and just listen, those of us who are interested, because he talks about this direct path of knowing who we truly are. So it will benefit those of us who are interested, and there you can, we could have done a meditation, but the time does not permit.
Monica, can you repeat the name, please?
Yeah, I'll type it in the chat window. Yeah. Yeah, one more question, I think. Though I am fully aware, I am not those thoughts or emotions. It's just frustrating knowing we are not mind yet mind place. Absolutely. You know, just last example that I would like to share here with you. Imagine that you are an actor. Now you go out and play a role of a murderer in a story. One day you forget to take off your clothes when you come back home, and you are totally drenched in that character of the murderer. Now you are overwhelmed with that story, and maybe your wife or spouse or partner, whatever there is at home, he comes and he says, "Why are you looking so worried? You are so troubled. What is happening to you?" And you say that, "Oh my God, I have committed really too much today, and it's really weighing down on my head." Now, all that the person has to do is to remind you that you are the actor and not the character of the play. This is why remembrance comes into picture. We become so engrossed in the characters that we play that we forget that we are the naked space of awareness, which is untouched by all the elements of life. Just like space in this room is untouched by what is the stuff is there in the room. If a tsunami comes and takes all the things and stuff away from the room, the space is still untouched. And just like that, who we truly are is untouched, purified element of our being, which is totally untouched by the stories that we have in our head. And that's why when we forget about this pure element in the being, we suffer, because no one likes that ugliness in life. No one likes that constriction, the story playing on the head. And it's beautiful that we don't like it, because that's not who we truly are. Yeah. So, and it will stay. Vigneshi, I'm totally with you. Forgetfulness is here to stay. We are born in ignorance. But remembrance is also a short call away. Mother is also a short call away. So whenever I feel ready, I remember, I offer myself, I know myself as awareness, and suffering goes away like poof, gone, as if it did not even exist. Yeah, I think we can also get it done here. We could have done a little meditation, but I think it's a long process, and I don't want to just cram it all up in a session.
It's a long process, yeah.
Yeah. So thank you very much for participating, for your questions, and yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, wonderful session, Monica.
Thank you.
And thank you everyone for participating and collaborating so beautifully on this event. So we meet again tomorrow at 5 o'clock. It's Dr. Falguni journey. And thank you once again, Monica. Wonderful session.
Yeah, thank you. Bye.
Namaste.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.